Hello and welcome to episode 22 of Attention Engineer. I'm Laura Kidd, a music producer, songwriter and solo artist making music as Penfriend and beaming into your ears from my home studio, The Launchpad in Bristol. Find me around the internet at Penfriend Rocks. I always love to hear from you. In a noisy online world, the gift of someone's attention is priceless. So thank you for joining me on my mission to inspire creativity in every listener through having the conversations I've always hoped for with some of the artists I admire the most. Greetings to you from a dark and chilly Bristol evening. I'm enjoying my cosy new jade green with leopard print lightning flash pullover. My slipper boots are firmly on for the rest of the cold months ahead, though let's not pretend I haven't been wearing them all year already. And I've started the new week with a hopeful and positive attitude, not unrelated to the exciting American events of the weekend. I'm so pleased for you, American listeners. Well done. Hope feels really good right now, and I think these moments need to be celebrated. So yes, I have a little spring in my step today, and I've been starting to plan out the next few weeks and months and looking forward to getting stuck into all the things you do after you finish an album. Lots and lots and lots of things to make and do and organise, with lots of excitement about sharing these new songs with you soon-ish. Hooray! Massive thanks to everyone who came to my live stream last week and to everyone who's picked up the limited online release of the highlights. That 8-track live album plus gig chat will be available till the end of this weekend only, so head to penfriendrocks.bandcamp.com to get yours. It's pay what you want /can, so if you're in a position to pay, that's wonderful and much appreciated. But if not, please feel free to take it as a gift from me to you. Now, onwards to today's guest. Butler is an English musician, songwriter and record producer, noted as one of Britain's most original and influential guitarists. Beginning his long and varied music career as a founding member of Suede, Bernard is well known for wildly successful collaborations with David McAlmont, Duffy and supergroup The Tears with former Suede bandmate Brett Anderson. As a producer and songwriter, he's worked with far too many names to mention, including the Libertines, Kate Nash, Nerina Pallot, Sophie Ellis-Bextor, Texas, Sam Lee and Paloma Faith, as well as playing guitar on records by Aimee Mann, Bryan Ferry, Roy Orbison, Bert Jansch, Neneh and Ben Watt. Alongside all this, he's resident lecturer at BIMM London, teaching some very lucky students on the BA Songwriting course. I first met Bernard about a year ago when I attended a very inspiring songwriting session he ran for the Musicians' Union in Birmingham, and I was delighted when he agreed to have an Attention Engineer chat with me. Let's get into it. Hello, Bernard Butler.
Hello.
How are you today?
I'm all right. How are you?
I'm okay. I'm all right. I've got a little bit of coffee left, so that's good. It's always good. We just had a lovely chat about our dogs, which I'm a little bit sad that we couldn't share with everybody else. But basically, miniature schnauzers are the best, in my opinion.
Mine is about to bound in any second for sure. Yes. It normally does.
Good. Excellent. Yeah, I think they're the best dogs ever. And we're talking on quite an interesting day, I think. I don't know if you think it's an interesting day for you, because you put a new album out last Friday and today is Thursday, which means that things are being counted at some point today by a computer. And whether that matters or not is something we will hopefully discuss as we go on. I think it's an interesting time to be talking to you. And I was just wondering if you could talk a little bit about this latest project of yours.
Well, it is a latest project in that it's come out, but it's actually been a record that's been going on for many, many years, literally. So it's a record with the artist Catherine Ann Davies, who also calls herself the Anchoress. And I met Catherine 12 years ago to do a sort of one-off writing session. And we wrote a couple of songs at that time, which we quite liked, and no one else did. And she was at the time, I guess, signed or trying to get signed by a major label who paid for the session, and so I messed that up for her. And we came back, a little while later, and did some more songs. And we had about 4 or 5 songs at that time we'd put together. And this is all for Catherine's solo. It was for her, under her name. And we lost touch a little bit because it went nowhere. And she started doing stuff as calling herself the Anchoress, and made her first solo record, the Anchoress. And we got back in touch, and because we both secretly liked the songs, and then we had another sort of stint at it. This is about a 4-year gap. Or more, actually, 5 years. I don't know how long it was, but a gap of about 5 years anyway. And we just thought, let's do this again. And we did it with a sort of different attitude, if you like, and a different approach as different people. Had this other stint, and essentially just did another 5 songs in this sort of spurt. Then it all drifted off again. Because again, no one was interested. We had sort of various meetings and played it to people and stuff, and they just slammed the door, and it just went off the everyone's radar, and we were both doing different things, and all along, I just always listened to the songs, and I really like them. It's one of these things. I mean, I've got a pile of these things that I carry around with me, the things that never came out and stuff, and occasionally, if I'm trying to look for an idea, I just think, what did that sound like? Was that any good? And when you listen to something 3 years after the event, it's quite a good test if no one else has heard it and you've had no validation, no chart position or fans or people buying it. If you can just listen to it again and think, I still think this is good, just honestly myself, in the same way I did when I started it. And I did that with Catherine a lot, actually. I just used to listen to this record on my own when I was traveling around on the tube and stuff, and thinking, this is quite good. It's I never thought it was a shame, really. I just thought it's quite interesting having this. No one's ever heard it. I thought there was something quite cool about that. Anyway, long story short, about 2 years ago, about 18 months ago, in fact, Catherine got in touch with me about something else entirely different. And I just said to her, that record we made, should we just put the bloody thing out? Should we just press it up? Here's the thing. We had a little meeting, we had a catch up and a coffee, and I just said, what we're going to do? I'll press this up, and should we just do it together and stick our names on it? And she said, yeah, let's do that. No one cares. No one's interested anyway. If we sell 500 or 200, then it will feel like it's drawn a line and it meant something, And so that was quite exciting. And then literally the week after, I met Pete Perfides, who's a friend of mine, and he lives really near me anyway. I met Pete in the street, and we were chatting about his new label, Needle Mythology. And Pete said, have you got anything? And I was like, I didn't want to be forcing my music onto his label, because it's quite selective the way he's choosing stuff. And I just said, I've got this and that. Yeah, I've always got loads of stuff, Pete. And it was just because I just met Catherine. I just said, well, I've got this record that I was going to put out anyway. And actually, could you help me to do the pressing up and stuff and show me, the sort of mechanics of it? Because you've already got a label, so you've got the sort of, what you're doing. And I sent it to him, and he just said, well, can I put it out? So I was like, well, are you sure? Do you mean that? Or you're not just feeling sorry for me? And he said, no, he said, no, I like it. This is great. Why haven't you put this out? And I said, well, because nobody thought it was any good. And nobody wanted to. And he said, well, I love it. So here we are. Yeah, it's a very long
I love that.
Story of 12 years.
Well, it's kind of wrapped up a mystery for me, because I've known Catherine for years and years, mostly online. We've played together in the past as well. And I remember her writing about this. I can't remember if it was on a blog or on Facebook or something. It might have even been MySpace. I don't know how long ago we're talking exactly. It could have been. When
I first met her, I remember getting sent a link or something to her songs, and it was MySpace, yeah.
Right. So that's where I was reading about it, because she was saying, I'm in the studio with Butler, and I was just like, oh my God, that's so cool. And then a few years later, I thought, whatever happened to that? And this is what happened to that, which is really cool. I think it's really interesting to come back to songs and to have written over such a long period of time, and as you say, have been coming back to it as different people throughout that time.
Yeah, that's certainly the bit that interests me and it interested me at the time. But of course, you have these thoughts when you're making something, and you know this sort of strategy, put it that way. Well, I do anyway. I have strategies of how to approach something and why I'm doing it. But actually now it's come out and it's been out for a week, and you know, I read people talking about it and stuff, which is very nice, and I kind of see it from a different perspective, and I can see that as well. I can see the strategies for me and look back and think, right, okay, that makes sense now, and it actually makes sense to people. So, and I think it was hugely to do with personality and experience, life experience, and the sort of fact that things had taken such a long time, and the things had happened to us as human beings in the meantime, both individually and together.
And I saw that Catherine had written somewhere or said in an interview about this, because you two didn't know each other very well, maybe you didn't know each other at all. And so the songs were the conversation that led you to get to know each other better. They
always are for me.
Yeah.
I've worked with hundreds and hundreds of people, you know, and I think everyone has a sort of potted history of what an artist does. You know, it normally involves like 3 songs or something if you're lucky, you know, but actually for me it involves hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people, and I always go into it with the approach of a reason for being. In my head, I always, it might sound a bit unsocial, but it's not really trying to be. It's just trying to be allow myself a creative relationship with somebody. But I always go into it, there's a reason for us to meet, and I like to be on that very creative reason with somebody. And when you meet somebody for the first time, a writing session, you can't go into it and try and get to know somebody and become their mate within 20 minutes. You just can't do it. And it's really not really within the bounds of what I'm interested in either. I'm interested in how people talk about their lives within the song. That is probably very different to how they talk about their lives separately if you were down the pub and, you know, or going out to dinner and trying to get to know somebody, you know. So I like the way with song you can do that, and that means I don't end up very often with very sociable relationships with people I work with, just because there isn't time, you know. I want to get on with doing what we do, and then generally when you finish, particularly when you're writing, there tends to be a kind of a moment when you're, wow, we've been sort of in that headspace for 3 or 4 hours, the two of us, and it's slightly odd, and it's normally, okay, should we leave this? and normally they want to get out the door fairly sharpish, and I'm really happy with that. But I also feel really close to an awful lot of the people that I've worked with because of what we created. But I feel close to them in a way that other people wouldn't feel close to them, and also in a way that they wouldn't feel close to people in a personal way in their personal lives. If that makes sense.
Yeah, it totally makes sense to me. I see the way that I distill my thoughts into my songs and my hopes and all the different things and the stories I try to tell through my songs. I see them as it's kind of like therapy with no professionals involved, where you would, you know, really need them to be. But I love the idea of that, being 2 people having that conversation and almost like a key going into a lock. I don't know, you're trying to put the right key in the right lock or something, and then something happens that wouldn't have happened without those 2 people or that group of people.
Yeah, someone warned me off therapy years ago, quite quite usefully, and said there's 2 types of therapy. There's the type where you go into a psychotherapist room and you never come out. That's it for the next 10 years of your life. Every Wednesday afternoon, just talking to this person. And there's a bit where you can just go in and you could I don't know, start do something interesting, like I don't know, go for a run or something, or yoga or something like that, where you can get an instant lift. And a lift on a perspective of how you see something. So and one of them, the first one, means that you're stuck in that place and you never stop talking about yourself, and you never come out of that place. And the other one gives you an opportunity to put a slant on something. that might not solve all of your problems, but it's not very realistic to try and solve all of your problems in that way. But you can give yourself an avenue for it, an opportunity to express it, which is much more useful. And so it's the former one that I think songwriting is. And if you slip into that mode, and I have slipped into this mode with people before, the second one, it doesn't really work. Because you just end up sitting there talking and nothing else, and it never resolves itself. The song should give you a kind of resolution in your life.
Yeah, in some ways it's kind of like songs can draw a line under an experience, and actually for me, I can only speak about myself, for me really help me move past something, or go, oh yeah, I've reflected on that, that's enough, and then I don't need to it's not like sticking in my head anymore. I don't even necessarily mean terrible things that have happened to me in the past. I just mean the things that I'm writing that song about. I think they're a really lovely way of crystallizing thoughts on something.
That's right, it's crystallizing thoughts, and it's not necessarily writing, here's where the story ends. This is the be all and end all of what happened. You're crystallizing something, an image, and you're encapsulating an image from your thoughts and framing it in a certain environment. You can't tell a life story in a song, however many lines you write, but you can capture one aspect of it and frame it in a really interesting way, and that's way better, way more useful for anybody than to try and write your life story over and over again.
Yeah. Well, especially if, like you're going to end up working with hundreds of people, because if you've told the whole story and then you have to repeat it many, many times, I just don't see how that could work.
I'm not interested enough. I've got my own shit going on. I can't be carrying hundreds and hundreds of stories. And I was talking to, I was listening with Mrs. Butler yesterday. We were in the car listening to you talking to Lem Sisse about this, and this is what I started. It prompted this conversation, which is this: sometimes I can't get involved with too many people. I do make the mistake of saying, yeah, I'll do that, and I'll do that, and Tuesday I'll do that, yeah, Wednesday I'm with that person, and then I think, oh God, actually my mind's a bit frazzled here, and sometimes. Not complaining at all, but sometimes people I work with don't take into account how many psychologies I'm taking on board when I'm with people, because I have to dive inside their lives and with the song, and it can get quite intense. And if you take too many of them on at one time, you're involved in all sorts of people's lives, and it gets complicated. And for me, upstairs, and I had the thought that you have to be cautious about not getting too involved. I mean, listen, the flip side of it is you tend to come out the other side, and I have a lot of friends from people I've made music with, because you've worked on such a personal, quite an emotional level with people. It's just that you end up they're different from the people you see on a Friday night, put it that way. They're just people in your life, and it's a really nice thing that you share this odd experience. It's an odd thing. I always tell people it's a ridiculous thing to do in life. It's awkward and embarrassing and slightly odd. You don't get on the bus and start saying to somebody, should we write a song? Or in a pub, you don't walk up to somebody and say, you look interesting, should we write a song? They're like, well, I thought you were going to ask me out. But no, we don't have that relationship. It's an odd, awkward thing to come together to do. And so for me, I've always had the outlook that we come together as a means to an end, and we get down to, the business of it, if you like, as quickly as we can, and be as blunt as we can about it. And and if it doesn't work, then bye. I don't really mind anyway. And I've written songs of people that I've never heard from again. I've written songs where they've been used and I've never heard from them again. That always pisses me off, if I'm honest. But when you write a song with somebody, and the next day I might run off a little demo of it and send it to them excitedly, saying, hey, that was lovely, this is our song, isn't it good? And they just don't reply. That's happened to me weird. It's happened to me many, many times, actually. And something I always try and express to people, that just don't do that to me, because but when that's happened, and it did happen with a big artist I worked with, and I sent it several times and it never came through, and about a year later it came out as their single, and it was a hit.
What?
Yeah, and that was I remember walking around Sainsbury's hearing it or Homebase or somewhere like that, somewhere mad like that, where it just came over the radio, and I was like, this is weird. I know this song, and it had come out, and I just thought, you should have just bloody sent me an email and said that was cool, that was nice, or that was crap, whatever, or I hate you, you're a twat. I don't mind that, but
bit of honesty would be good, wouldn't it?
Yeah, but you learn to live with that. I guess that's part of my what I'm saying is that if I don't go in for it looking to go out to dinner with people, then that's what I've got to take.
Yeah,
I have to accept it both ways. We're there to make music and do a specific thing that exists outside of our own persons. It's supposed to exist for other people, and exist as a little mini piece of art that it works for other people's lives. So I'm completely settled with that situation. I don't mind it, but I do kind of feel less of you, actually, if you've done it for me.
Yeah, don't do that to Bernard, okay, everyone?
You can do it to me, but I just won't. I just think you're a twat. Well,
I think you'd be right. I think that's terrible. I was really interested in what you said about strategies, because it sounds like you're someone who knows why they're doing things. And I think that kind of level of self-awareness is, I don't know if it's rare, but it's something that I have only started coming to in the last few years personally. So I'm really interested in that.
I've just always assumed that everything I do is the last thing I ever do before I get the job again. So I always think of a reason to do it. So I think a lot of people who work in music and producers and jobbing songwriters, if you like, I've met quite a lot of extrovert characters that are just completely sure of their ability to write the hit today. Let's write the hit. It's going to happen with me. You are such a lucky guy because you're with me. Look at my amazing studio. Have you seen it? And that's my car outside. That's right. And did you know what number I am this week? And I'm not. I'm eternally embarrassed by everything about it still. But I like doing it. And so I always think of reasons. I call them strategies, but they're just excuses really to just think of why am I doing this today. But I always think of it as this phrase, I look for the crack in the door. So I look for it with anybody who have the opportunity to work with, or, maybe gets in touch with me or something. I always look for a reason to do it. And so I look for the crack in the door, where there's a little bit of light coming through and nobody's opened that door fully. So that's always my reason for doing it. And so I've always thought if you hear something and I often hear things that, particularly a young artist might be sent, their demo might be sent, or we don't even have demos anymore, but their track might be sent to me from a management company or something like that. And they always say, we're looking for opportunities and, to develop the artist. And we'd like to see what you can do to develop the artist. And at which point I always just hit delete.
Yeah, that sounds awful.
And but generally, if they're fully formed recordings, I just think that sounds good. What am I going to do with that? What's the point? So I'm not saying I pick at faults, but you look at opportunities. Like, for example, with Catherine, I remember really clearly hearing her MySpace songs, and I really thought her voice, I really love voices with character. I like interesting voices because voices are the most human part of music. The most physically human thing you can do is use a part of your body and produce air and produce a sound. And so it's the most pure form of creating sound in that way. And so as an extension from that, if you have something that has particular character to it that's individual and unique, then I feel that's surely what you want, because if you're just trying to be somebody else, then you're not being at that pure, finding that pure level. So I thought she had this really, really interesting, characterful and sort of beautiful voice technically, and as well as the tone of it and the delivery. And I thought, and the crack in the door was that her music at the time was quite lush, from what I remember. Lots of piano, she's a great pianist. I mean, I'm a terrible pianist, and she's a brilliant piano player. And but her piano was very florid and and sort of dominated things, and there was lots of overdubs, and I felt that the message was buried within lots and lots of layers, and often people do that, as we all do, for a bit of comfort, try and bury ourselves somewhere so we're not quite the PJ Harvey inside ourselves isn't quite coming out.
Right.
Polly Harvey just puts herself in the front and says, "Here I am, hello," which is so wonderful about her. And so many of the rest of us want to be that, and yet then can't resist that harmony and that double track and that bucket of reverb and stuff. So I remember thinking that with Catherine the first time I heard it, and so the crack in the door was just really simple. It's just well here's the thing that I like right in the middle, and if I take all this stuff out, what if I meet this woman, whoever she is, and I say, well, I like this thing, and what about we take away all of this stuff and see what's there? So we take away the reverb and the florid piano and all the effects and all that kind of stuff. And how about here's the mad thing? I'm going to play piano. What do you think of that? And so that was my strategy with Catherine the day I met her. And I always know that you could have the door slammed in your face and people can just say no, which is completely their right. But it's all about asking questions, isn't it? And challenging people. So that was my question to her, was that. And I play piano in a very kind of bow, 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 bow way, very, very blunt way, with deliberately about octaves and very simple triads and stuff. So, that was my strategy. That was my strategy of Catherine, and she went with it. I don't really know if she regrets that now, or what she thought of that at the time.
But I love that. So that's like distilling things down to the vital parts and not adorning it.
Yeah.
Because I mean, obviously, I've listened to the record and it is very present, and I hadn't really thought about it in that sense, because I know Catherine's old early Catherine AD stuff was that exactly as you describe, and I really love that. Actually, I'm a massive fan of double and triple tracking and lots of different things in my own music too. But there's something very special about when you boil it all down like that. And I've been reading a lot lately about, I suppose, approaching things in terms of editing. So where there are many, many melodies you could put onto a set of chords, what's the melody or what's the vital part of that? And in terms of production, because I produce my own music, that's why I'm starting to look at it in that way, and just to take things away rather than adding them. So it's really interesting that was something you were thinking about from the start of working with her.
Yeah. I mean, it's not, and it's by no means the right way. It's just I always look for that was the crack in the door. If Catherine had played me a song with an acoustic guitar, I might have gone the other way. Said, what if we do this thing? I was just thinking, if you're really good at something, then there's got to be a reason. That's what I'm trying to say. There's got to be a reason for me bothering, or reason for you bothering to have me involved. Yeah. And, I've got to be able to add something or do something. And always, that doesn't mean I can come in and add my strings or my guitar or whatever, like that kind of thing. What I'm trying to say is I've got to be able to ask a question of you. That's the point of me being there, because we work as songwriters most of the time in a solitary way, and it's very difficult to ask ourselves questions. It's very easy to sit staring at your laptop and on Logic or whatever, and for days and days, and not really be able to truly look ourselves in the mirror when we're doing that. So in many ways, working with somebody and collaborating with somebody is really about having somebody challenge you and question you, and without you having the feeling that this is a personal attack or some kind of negative criticism. Yeah, it's about saying, where are the possibilities, and what if? The great what if. That's the question that always comes in my head. What if? That phrase. What if you did this? What if you took away the thing that makes this work? It's just an oblique strategy, that the thing. It's really an extension of that, but asking the question always when you look at something, what could happen? What are the possibilities?
I really love that questing nature, and the idea that, for me, it's been hard sometimes not to get involved in too many things in the way you were talking about earlier, because it's just nice to be asked to do things sometimes. And as an artistic personality, or my artistic personality, I kind of feel like this, obviously, gratitude for being able to do this, and then trying to sort of please people thing. But I love also what you're talking about like, you could just say yes to everything, take the money, do your best, but not really care. But it sounds like you're only taking on things that you do really care about and you think you can add something to. that will help the artist as well?
There's no money these days anyway. That question doesn't bother me, actually.
Okay.
In a good and a bad way. It actually is kind of a good thing, because but I feel like I can use that excuse now, whereas most people can't, because they don't have a choice. But I feel like I've always done that. I've always looked at what I like and what's important to me. Listen, I'm the person who turned down working with Adele because it was the day of the Arsenal-Tottenham game.
I didn't know that story.
Listen, we won. Oh, it was the North London derby. There's no way I'm giving up that on a Sunday to work with some singer, and so there you go. Yeah, I've got no regrets. It was a good game.
Oh, good.
And also, by the way, she's a Tottenham fan, so there you go.
I'm just like, I know nothing about football, so I'm just laughing to sound like I know what you're talking about.
It's a big the biggest derby game in London, and anyway, that's and I'm an Arsenal fan, so just choices in life. I don't know. I mean, within what I'm asked to get involved in, or where I become wrapped up with people, I'm really lucky. I mean, the most mainly because I'm lucky that I've been involved with very diverse music, and that's the way I like it. I get lots and lots of different, I don't know, styles and influences that are involved with the people I work with, and that, I find that really amazing.
Well, it's an incredible body of work that you are building up as well. I'm really impressed and inspired by it as a songwriter myself. I was wondering how you think of yourself, because you do various different things. Obviously, you are a songwriter for yourself, for other people. You do production. You're a teacher as well. When you think of Bernard Butler, what are you?
Try and avoid thinking of Bernard Butler, because I still think it's the worst name in history.
Really?
What do I think about? I think about every day. I think about how am I going to make something else? How is this going to work? What am I doing next week? What am I not doing next week that I should be doing? Currently, right this morning, I'm working with somebody this afternoon who is wonderful, who I've been working with over the summertime. And by complete chance, we've written an entire album of songs which we really love, and it's turned into something which we never thought. And it's exactly the thing that I was talking about, where we just met, started having these very oblique conversations, and every time we had one, we wrote a song, and something that I'm really in love with at the moment. And we're now going to take the next step and attempt to play these songs with a couple of musicians in the room, which we haven't done so far. And we're doing that next week, and we're both very excited by this step of what will happen when these two people bring something to the music, and what they'll if they'll shed light on it. And I'm also petrified because I've chosen two of the best musicians I know. Like, I can't believe I've managed to get them, interested in what I do, and they're just really shit hot musicians, and I'm just really petrified. So I'm going to spend a few days panicking and trying to learn songs, basically, because often when we write, we do things and then you just kind of put it down in it, and then a week later you're like, well, it sounds good, but I've got no idea what I was playing, or what instrument, or what guitar. In this case, there's a lot of open tunings on the guitar, so I'm trying to think of, oh, Jesus, what was that? And so that's what I think about me.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about what I'm doing next week and how I can make sure I don't mess it up. As always with people, I'm just trying not to let you down. Always lovely. Trying to not let you down. Because I feel like the person I'm working with this afternoon is a wonderful vocalist and a lyricist, and we're very in love with these songs. And I don't want to let anyone down. I think people give me a lot of trust. And I'm always trying. I'm never thinking about trying to sell records. Well, you can't anyway these days. And I don't know. I certainly don't think about me as a whole. No, never. I never think about going backwards. Never think about I couldn't bear that idea. I think about what I'm going to do.
Yeah.
And I kind of cringe at every mention of having to go through the haircut I had 20 years ago or something like that. It's just in the same way that most people do.
Welcome to Correspondence Corner, where I ask you, what was the first album that changed your life? And what was the most recent?
My name is Paul Dodgson. I am a writer, a musician, a teacher of creative writing, and a radio producer. And the most important things in my life are my partner, my children, my cat, and music. And last year I wrote a book about music. It's called On the Road Not Taken, a memoir about the power of music. And it tells the story of me falling in love with music as a child, becoming a guitarist and a singer in a teenage band, and following through to the age of 19, where I actually stopped singing in public. And I didn't sing again for 30 years, but inside me there was this voice that was desperate to be heard. And it got to the point where I thought, if I don't do it now, I'm never going to do it. And so in 2016, I walked onto the stage of Bristol Old Vic Theatre with my guitar and sang a song for the first time. And then went out on the road, played in pubs, clubs, festivals all over the place, and discovered what it's really like to live the dream. So the first album that really changed my life was probably My Aim Is True by Elvis Costello, which was released in 1977 when I was quite young. Up to that point, I'd been listening to prog rock, bands like Genesis. And although I appreciated it enormously and lived in the sort of fantasy worlds that they created, it was this sound of Elvis Costello that was really upfront, singing short songs, amazingly arranged, that sort of sounded kind of like punk, but not like punk, like they drew on everything else. I think that album was produced by Nick Lowe, and it just got under my skin, and I would play it over and over and over again, and I still have the record, and I still can feel that tingle of excitement when I drop the needle down onto the grooves. The last album that made a big impact on me was released earlier this year by a songwriter and singer called Clem Snide, and was called Forever Just Beyond. And I came across Clem Snide through a Spotify algorithm. He was pointed in my direction, and was immediately attracted to a song, actually one song in particular called Roger Ebert's Last Words. And that took me to the album, and then I started working through the back catalogue. But it's this latest album that I find really kind of intoxicating. And I think partly because, I'm in my 50s now, and what do you sing about when you're in your 50s? How do you make songs that are kind of relevant to that part of your life? Well, he's not quite that old, but he seems to convey a sense of humanity, of being older, and it just chimes with me, and I carry those songs with me in my head when I'm going about my business.
Thank you, Paul. Now, Paul has been a friend of this podcast since the Frank Turner episode aired, and he stumbled across the series on Facebook. I love it when people find the stuff I make and get in touch to tell me, and I was very excited to read Paul's book, which I can now heartily recommend to anyone who loves music, has played or would like to play music, or has suffered any kind of stage fright or inner critic issues. I think that pretty much covers most people who might be listening to this, so do please check it out. It's called On the Road Not Taken, and you can find out more at ontheroadnottaken.co.uk. I'll put a link in the show notes for you. Over to you now, please. I'd love to feature you on a future episode, and it's really, really easy to send me your recording. Just go to speakpipe.com/penfriend for my questions, and you can record and send your answers right there on the page. Now, back to my conversation with Bernard Butler. People really harp on the past a lot. That must be frustrating. I mean, I'm someone who very few people know about, so there's none of that, which is great. I think there's a lot of benefits to that, to moving through life that way.
The internet is a wonderful thing. can believe me. I just always say to people, it's great. You know, I bet you were happy when you were 13 as well, but you probably don't want to look at pictures of yourself at 13 and you probably don't want to look like that right now, or you know, and I bet you're pretty different, right? You know, different person. And it's nice to say, yeah, that was cool. But actually I don't really want to be back there.
No.
You know, and but people don't really accept that with musicians like me, and it's with me in particular. It's quite hard because there's so much going on. There's so much that has gone on, and so people. Often fans, you know, and also the people are in love with something you've done, and they have a huge attachment to it, which isn't really about me. They think it is about me, but it's not. It's about them. It's about where they were, who they were shagging at that time, or, you know, what they're drinking, where they were living, what job they're doing, all those things that the person who left them at the time, you know, the song resonates with that, or, you know, the bad time you're having, the good times you're having, you know, all those things. That's what the songs resonate. And this is a hard lesson, but I wasn't there. It wasn't me. It was the song, you know. And so, although you know you look back on that time fondly as part of your life, I'm really pleased. It can be frustrating. Yeah, of course it's frustrating, you know. But it's I dig my own grave with it because I deliberately and stubbornly paint myself into moving forward, and that's my way of creating stuff. I wouldn't be able to create if I didn't do that, but I know that the downside of that is life would be much easier if I was just sort of living off past glories and just going on about the good old days all the time. You know, and I can see that there's a side of that people really want. People want you to do that, you know, but at the same time then they're also then liking what you're doing now.
Yeah.
So they can't connect that you can't have both together, you know, for me.
Well, it seems it's easier to think of someone as a character rather than a person, I think, in some ways.
Yeah, there's no gaps there's nothing in between. You know, there's like, you made that record and had that haircut, and oh, look, then you were wearing those trousers and sounded like that. And I'm like, well, actually, there was 15 years in between then. You know, there's 3 children and a dog and all sorts of mad stuff. And, you know, you can't imagine, you know, what happened in your life in that gap.
Yeah.
You know, so, but it's very difficult to pin those things together, but it's all right. You know, it's kind of all right. I think it's quite funny. I find it amusing. You know, you get on social media, you know, people, and they just post, you know, on your birthday. That's the great thing. It's nice. People remember your birthday. It's sort of mad, really. I don't know why. I don't remember anyone's birthday, but people sometimes remember my birthday. And then there's a happy birthday to Butler, you know, who's now 93, and there'll be a picture of me there when I'm 18 or 21 or something, and I just like, do you really? Are you getting this? That's me at 21, or that's not me today. So I always on my birthday post a picture of me at my age, saying, look, this is me at this age. Here it is. You know, good or bad. I know I look shit. It's fine. There you go. It's the way that's the way life is. You know, but overall, you've got to be grateful that people like anything that you've done. Yeah. And it means something to people. And I get that it genuinely means something in people's lives when you have music that you've given them that reflects a period of their life fondly and gives them some kind of you know, I don't know, survival mechanism or something. Yeah. I'm grateful that I've played that role. But it is awkward. Yeah.
But those teenage years of discovery are so powerful as well. And I can only speak about my own again, because and things are wildly different now in terms of music discovery and how you might have your favourite bands, or they might shift and change quicker now. I really don't know. I don't know anything about that. But I do know that the bands that I came across when I was, I don't know, 12 to 18 maybe, really have stuck with me this whole time. And I think that's a lot to do with the fact that there's very little option to make your own decisions at that age. As a child, you know, you're not even choosing what you're eating, what you're wearing necessarily. You're at school. Everything's very fixed. And then you can start choosing the things you like, the art that you like, and surround yourself with those things that you feel speak to you more than maybe the people you know, your family, whatever. That's really hard to sort of shake. Not that I would want to shake it, because it gave me so much. So I think that's really interesting. But then also, it's not about the person who made it necessarily. That person didn't do that for you specifically. You're bringing your own experience to the songs and taking your own meaning, which is just such a beautiful and magical thing. And the thing is, you've done that through many, many hundreds of songs as well over the years. And you mentioned the internet. I was wondering how you feel about how that's impacted your career, because you definitely started in a time pre-internet.
Well, I guess it can be a blessing and a curse, for every human being, really.
Yeah.
I'm no different. I try and honestly treat it more like just a way of promoting something. And that sounds harsh, but it's more to do with just connecting what you do, making people aware of what you do, and being as I find. I mean, it's awkward again because I've learned how to be a bit better at it, and the ways of doing that are sticking your mug in people's faces every 5 times a day, and that's really embarrassing for me. When I see people doing that, it looks really terribly narcissistic. And but then you realize people would say, well, actually, they only respond if you put a picture of your dog. They don't really care. They'll say your dog's nice, but they're not going to listen to you because of it. So I've had to learn the hard way with Catherine at the moment. Catherine's really good at it, and she's an incredibly smart character and very hardworking on top of everything else. And she's really helped me work out how to use our bring in audiences and just connect people. And I think it's a nice thing. Honestly, we had this record out last week, and people go on Twitter, and the amount of people that have just taken a photograph, their records arrived through the post, and they've taken a photo and put it on the deck and taken a photo of it and said, wow, this is nice. And I think that's something really lovely. It really blows me away, and it feels genuine, like you've actually given, particularly because we've made a physical release and put a lot of effort into the physical release. When you see people have bought this, spent time, paying for it, and it's arrived through the post, and they've stuck it on at the weekend, there's something, really genuinely heartwarming about that. I feel like, wow, they're having a nice little time there on Sunday night. Yeah. I'm really happy that I played a little role in somebody's nice time.
Yeah. Well, especially at the moment, I think being able to offer these experiences to people, it's an incomparable thing. I get so much from listening to the music that I love. And so same thing when I put something out and people take the time to buy it and support it, and I get to see that, it's a beautiful thing, really lovely. And there's obviously a dark side to being online too much, and that can have very bad effects, and scrolling all day is really bad for your mental health and stuff. But there are really lovely things about that connection, for sure. So I'm glad you're enjoying that anyway.
Well, I do it to a certain extent for that reason, but the rest of the time kind of switch it off. Yeah. So I mean, I've had bad experiences with it, put it that way. Yeah. And you've got to be really cautious. I mean, I always tell my kids, look, if you don't like something there, don't go on about it and make a big deal out of it. Turn the bloody thing off. Just throw it out the window. It doesn't exist. Yeah. I haven't got much patience for getting too worked up about it. Someone says something nasty to you, and that has happened to me. Switch it off. It doesn't exist. Look at the trees. Suddenly the world is different. Yeah. There's no need to, write a book about it or something. Yeah. So, get over yourself a little bit sometimes. That
gives me a bit of hope that at least 3 children are being told something smart by their dad about social media. Well done.
Oh, they don't listen to me, obviously. But
of course not.
At least they know not to come complaining to me, because I've said, well, look, I told you to turn it off. You didn't. What do you expect?
Yeah. I've got a great example about that. Yeah, if you don't put your face on social media, no one cares. Because yesterday I published the episode of this podcast with Lem Sisse, who's an amazing poet. He's done loads of brilliant things. It's a wonderful conversation. And it's a really beautiful picture of him that he, one of his press pics, put it up on my Instagram, something like, 50 likes. I don't know how many, whatever. And I put a picture of myself holding a guitar. Everyone loved that one because it's got my face on it. And it's so interesting. I don't bemoan that. I just think it's a funny, weird thing that, it's some weird human nature psychology thing going on there. But I do find it like it's kind of funny. It's a really useful thing that we've got to use in lieu of the more useful things perhaps that were there in the past. I mean, in terms of putting records out, do you find that the internet has given freedom? Is it good generally? I know we can't go back in time anyway. But are you able to make it work for you?
I probably could make it work better for me if I got off my arse a bit more and did more about it. But currently it doesn't. Not really, no, because everything's for free.
Yeah.
No. So thanks, Radiohead. That was a brilliant idea. I was in the plush office of a major record company about a year ago, and this really stuck in my head. And I was asked about, pulled in for a meeting by somebody, and sometimes this happens to me, and you think, well, you've got to go because you could get something really good out of it, something, asked to work with somebody really great or something, and sometimes you'd really get the feeling you've been asked to come in and have a sort of a chat, and they want to know what you're thinking and play you stuff. And then nothing happens at all. Anyway, that was the case. So I went into this guy's incredible office, and always what happens when you go into a major record company, this has happened to me for nearly 30 years. The minute you walk in, they ask you to comment on the furniture and the lighting and the stuff. They always say, pretty cool, isn't it? Got that chair, and do you like this? They'll always have some extraordinary framed poster from 1972 or something that they've of course bought for £10,000, and they want to tell you about it, a Bob Dylan signed picture or something like that. And this extraordinary view, you wanted to tell me about the view, isn't it great? And I'm like, yeah, that's where I live, sort of over there in the distance. Like, wow. Oh my God, yeah, this is a nice view. Yeah, well, you look out this window, you should see my window. I've got cranes. And anyway, yeah, and the thing that stuck in my head during this conversation was he wanted to tell me greatly about how things were going for the music industry, and he said it's going pretty well. It's going really well. I mean, 5-10 years ago it was really touch and go for us. We just couldn't work out. But now it's just like doing really well, making a lot of money, and it's going really great. And I just remember thinking, you fucker, every musician I know is working in a bar, in a pub, in a cafe, in another job, teaching, whatever, including me. I've been doing this since, mate, you were at school. I'm looking at you and wow, people are working incredibly hard to create what they call content. And here you are staring out of your skyscraper office telling me how amazing it is for you using the work of people like me and really not paying any of us. And so that was a real eye-opener for me, because I really felt like the music industry feels like it's worked out a way of making it work for itself, and left an awful lot of people in the shade, and very, very difficult. And so now we know at this point where we are this year, of course, that's more harsh than ever.
Yeah, because the government's telling us as well that what we do isn't worth anything, and that everyone should do something else, which is tough to take. I think I've been finding that. I mean, I wasn't expecting any better from them particularly. I'm not a fan of the current government, but
yeah, part of me kind of thinks, really, what, Tory government? Disappointed, are we?
Yeah.
A bit let down.
What a surprise!
Really?
Yeah.
Well, you voted for these people and you didn't know what might happen. But obviously it's harsher than ever.
Yeah.
And sort of heartbreaking what's going on at the moment.
Yeah, it is.
But regards music, yeah, I don't know. I mean, I've always thought that I went into the first label meeting I ever went into in 1991 or something, with a chip on my shoulder as an angry young man, just assuming that major record companies are all, all monsters and I don't think they're monsters, but it's the same as the way I've thought about commercial radio. I've never gone into it with the mentality that they're all on my team, and they're all interested in what I want out of this, because I feel that the music that inspired me to do this in the first place was always worked on an outsider system, where always the people left out anyway. And so I always assumed that if I had any opportunity to be involved in this, I would play that role as well. And so I still feel that. So, and it takes you back to the whole nostalgia thing. I feel at that time as well, I didn't want to be old man in the pub, that bloke sitting in the corner going on about the good old days and we're going back out on the road doing reunion tours, all that kind of stuff. That was kind of the stuff that when in 1991 we sat around saying, that is a crime against humanity. You know, to be that person. Don't ever let yourself be that person. So I stuck with my guns. So I still stick to my guns about that. I still think the same thing, that and have that mentality, and have that mentality about the way the music industry looks at making money, and isn't the most creative place, but is surrounded by hugely talented and gifted idealists and visionaries who will always strive to create something imaginative and beautiful, and will put the sort of the spirit of art of it as an art form ahead of silly poses on Instagram.
Yes.
You know, and I just think I've stuck by my guns with that and tried as much as possible. And it's been my ruin, quite frankly.
I love hearing all that, because I'm someone who's never been part of the music industry ever. I've always been independent, and I've always released my stuff myself, and I've grown an audience using the internet. And sometimes I think, you know, on the days where I just want someone to fix everything for me and make it easier, which is, I think we all feel sometimes, someone to press that red button and be on the radio, be in a magazine, this and this and this, all these magical things that will come together to mean that I don't have to work quite so hard as I do. And then on the next day, I'm just like, do you know what? I don't want any of that anyway. I would hate to walk down the street and anyone know who I was. That would be just the worst thing in the world. I just want to make music and put it out and get it to people. So I really appreciate what you're saying there.
I think an awful lot of people think that way, and an awful lot of people along the way have thought I was bonkers for thinking that way. But I think actually that's the reality for most ordinary, reasonable human beings.
Yeah.
And people who have imaginations and want to create. That should be your sole motivation. I mean, the record of Catherine is a huge validation of this, because it really was just a last resort. No one's going to care. Let's do this for ourselves. Just stick it out. So we knew it. Just draw a line under this, you know. And the fact that people have responded nicely about it is a validation of that, because it was genuinely made just with that intention. Who are we two people, you know? Who are we? What do we want? And let's do something without even talking about it.
Yeah, and I think the idea that no one wanted to put it out and that kind of thing, that doesn't mean, like, just because a label or several labels or whatever didn't want to release it, doesn't mean that there isn't a massive audience or any kind of audience for that music. So I think circumventing that, obviously Pete helping you with it is great, because he's, you know, an interesting person doing really good things with his label. That's obviously helpful, but there's always going to be people who will appreciate that art. And now at least we can get it out to them directly. You don't have to go, oh, this person in their office with the view, you know, the skyscraper view doesn't think it's any good, so it's not. So there's no one who wants to hear it, because there clearly are.
I mean, I grew up with that inspiration, you see. That's the problem. That was my inspirational, my perspective of the people who inspired me. Put that in my head.
Right.
That's the place to be. That's the cool place to be. And that's what you have to aspire to be if you want to do something like we're doing. And I've just stuck by it and think that then in order to inspire other people, I have to stick by that. I can't sell out and just suddenly turn around and change tack on it. To truly give people, and particularly at this time, to give other artists the feeling that you can create something, and to inspire them to see the power that I see in song, popular songs, effectively what this is, and the power of music. You know, I always say to students who I just say, look, you know, you have a huge possibility to change somebody's life by what you do. Use it. Use that platform. It's an incredible power that you have to give somebody today who's suffering, you know, 3 minutes of just joy.
Yeah.
And that's a massive possibility to have in your pocket. Use it well.
I love that. Now, having experienced fame and had commercial success in the past, how do you define success these days?
Talking to you, Laura. Here I am. You know, just somebody's interested.
Yeah.
How do I define success? You know, music, you know, making something that I like. You know, this afternoon, it will be a success if I manage to get through the afternoon and play well.
Yeah.
and remember the songs. That would be a very successful day. But it will remind me that tomorrow I've got to also do the same thing.
Yeah.
Success. Yeah. What probably plays on my mind an awful lot is the fact that, as always happens, you make a record and it's kind of behind your time, if you like. Oh, everyone likes me sounding like this today.
Yeah.
Which is great. But, oh, shit. Because right now I'm writing loads of songs on an acoustic guitar, which is something I haven't really done before, and I'm really enjoying it. So that's kind of the polar opposite.
Yeah.
How do I pull those things together? And it goes on from there. So my criteria of success is that, really, I mean, that's all it is.
Yeah.
Being able to do that. I'm very lucky with my family and personal life. It's busy. It's like a crazy hotel here all of the time, and I'm lucky to be able to squeeze out the opportunities that I get to make music and to have people come round and get just got opportunities. That's success.
Yeah.
I meet great people. I'm just like, wow, this is great. Look who I'm talking to, and look who I'm getting to write with. I'm really lucky, they're inspiring me, and they're telling me about that book or that film or something, and I'm running off to look it up.
Yeah.
Like Catherine, I remember Catherine coming up with this line in memory of my feelings when we were writing these songs, and she said, "Oh, I think it's a bit corny," and I was like, "No," and I pounced on it and I said, "That's such a great line. I like pouncing on lines when I hear them, even if I don't know the meaning." And she said, "I've also stolen it." And I said, "Oh, I didn't know that." I said, "Catherine, I don't know it, so I don't really care. Let's just nick it. It sounds great." And and of course she knew, and then it went on from there. It's a Frank O'Hara piece of writing,
okay.
who I then found out about because of Catherine, but I didn't know. And I always nod my head and said, "Yeah, great, Frank O'Hara, yeah, excellent, yeah." Anyway, let's nick the title, shall we? So I'm lucky to meet people like Catherine, who brings so much into my life. And facilitate it. So that's my success criteria.
I love it. I think of success as a thing that evolves, and it's not a defined point, because I always thought that if success is a certain thing, or selling this many albums or this number whatever in whatever, then once you've got that, you still have to live. So there has to be like a moving target almost.
Well, with any artist, like you're saying, with any artist, you need to have something that's realistic and dependent on you and your own personal attainment. So chart positions or radio playlists or something are out of your hands at the end of the day.
Yeah.
And also they divert you away from your own personal quest, the opportunity for you to sort of find something in yourself and challenge yourself. And that is within you. That is very hard as well. And that's something that is a much better thing for every human being to just look at themselves and be able to challenge themselves.
Yeah, 100%. It really bothers me when I see younger musicians still talking about making it. That's still a thing. And that this kind of indefinable 2-word phrase that means almost nothing and is even more difficult, whatever that even means. So I loved you tweeted the other day, "I've had all this before and felt very little," in regards to chart placements, because people are getting excited. It's the album is selling, it's doing well, there's going to be a number tomorrow that means something to someone, nothing to someone else, whatever. So how are you feeling about the record? Are you even going to look tomorrow? Are you someone who hides from that?
Well, me and Catherine, Catherine texted me on a Saturday and said, "We're number something." I can't remember what it was.
14.
And I said, what do you mean we're number what? What do you mean? Is it in the chart? And I said, we don't know those anymore. Don't be ridiculous. She said, no, seriously, it's in the proper chart. She sent me it, and it was just really funny because I think Daniel O'Donnell was number 1, which is just so absurd and all sorts of things. We were neck and neck with Amanda Holden, I believe, at that point. Who'd have thought? Who I used to live next door to, really weirdly, and who'd have thought that there could have been an amazing partnership there. How do I feel about it? I've had number 1 records before, and just sort of felt nothing really. It's currently burrowing itself far deep down the chart, so I'm not getting the champagne on ice yet for chart positions. But those sort of moments of success in my past, I mean, they're just different from other people. They really are, just like there's things that happened during Suede days, for example, which are probably just not, they're completely different from other people's judgment of something. It was probably some show I remember where I just felt that was good, or listening to something and thinking that was a good moment. And also conversely, it can be a moment which wasn't particularly nice, but also it was quite sort of emotionally big and memorable. So those are your sort of memories, but they're not really chart positions or how many records you sold or anything like that, And again, it goes back to the thing that I've thought, well, that wasn't why I was here in the first place, to do it,
Yeah.
So, I grew up with things that didn't register on that way, that were judged in a different way.
Yeah, of course. Yeah. I mean, the reason I ask because I've talked to some people who, because they've had number one albums, they do judge the album by a number, and some people don't. I prefer it when people don't, because I don't think making music is about that number. But then I'm a bit of a hypocrite, because my last record did get to 47 in the midweek charts, but I'm a completely independent person. I never thought that would ever happen, so that was like mind-blowing to me.
On that case, when it is somebody working in that way, working, I know how incredibly hard that is.
Yeah.
Actually, it's exactly the same for me and Catherine. Believe us, we're not paid for a radio plugger, anything on this record at all. It's just the two of us, we're literally making up emails of radio DJs and sending our songs and saying, will you play our song?
Yeah.
That's what we've been doing. And that's what I used to do when I was 18 or something. So it's kind of the same as you, and doing everything we can to alert people who might know about us. And so the validation, it was really lovely, validation at the weekend, Catherine was very excited, and it's a validation for people working hard with you, and also for people who like the record as well, feeling that it means something,
Well, that's it, isn't it? If something goes into the charts, it's because, yes, the music has spoken to the people, so it wouldn't happen without the music, but it's the people who are going and spending their money. And we all know that they're choosing to spend money on that record, because they could listen to it for nothing, and they're choosing not to do that. And that's really very kind of them. So
it is great. Yeah.
I'm really happy that this record's come out, because, it was just a mystery to me years ago. Like, where's this thing gone? It sounds like it's going to be amazing. Where is it? And it's out now, so it's really exciting. So anyone listening needs to go and listen to that, please. And I'd just like to wrap up by asking, which 3 pieces of your own work would you recommend as a gateway for new listeners?
Oh, my God. You know what? Again, we were listening to this in the car yesterday, and you said this to Lem Sisse, and Mrs. Butler said, are you ready for this? Do you know what yours will be? And I said, she's not going to ask me the same thing. I mean, the number one is always going to be Yes by McAlmont and Butler. Because a bit like with the record with Catherine, it was a hugely idealistic vision for that record. I committed complete career suicide, walked out of a band, flung my fur coat to one side, and went off and made a one-off song with somebody who's almost unheard, and it was completely against the grain of everything at the time, and it was intended as a kind of like a lost Northern Soul 7-inch or something. That was my vision, that you get those Northern Soul 7-inches where you just get the disco sleeve with the hole in the middle, and you never know who the artist's name is, but its life becomes about just the music and the energy. So you never know what the artist looks like, what they who they were, where they're from, but that didn't matter. What it was about when you put the needle on the vinyl, and this thing came out of the speaker, and it's sort of that was the real that was the backstory, if you like. So rather than everything around the record, so finding the purest moment which you could find within pop music, that was the inspiration with that record. So I feel like people so often talk to me about that song, what it means to them, and again, at the time when it came out, the label wouldn't put it out, and they didn't want to put it out. They didn't think it was the single.
That's
and
bonkers, isn't
months
it?
and months for it to come out, and it was huge hassles about it all, and and I was very stubborn about it, and pretty daft about it. and we went to extraordinary lengths to make it present it as it was presented, and it had no playlist. It had no playlist, and it was number 10 in the midweek, and Radio 1 suddenly had to playlist it because they're like, why is this record in the top 10 when we haven't played it?
Yeah.
And so that was, for me, is absolutely just a huge validation, and it works in the same way as in the Catherine record does. So, and the fact that people so remember it for that way, in that singular way. They didn't have the T-shirt. They didn't go and watch us on tour. They didn't have to have that validation. They just have this piece of music that occasionally comes into their life on a playlist or a compilation or something, and it makes them feel a certain way.
Yeah. Well, I was watching the Jules Holland performance last night, and just that, I mean, the vocals. I mean, I've never seen someone sing so effortlessly. That song's incredible. I remember it, of course, from hearing it over the years, but just wow.
He's extraordinary, and we had to. We were all acting in an extraordinary way. You know, I took it for granted that, you know, we're going to do this, and then we're going to do a key change and another key change, and you're going to keep track with this, and then you're going to go and hit this note up here, and you did it. He just went and did it.
It's amazing.
And we were really, you know, on fire. We wrote the song in an afternoon, and it was hugely visionary. And I met this amazing guy, the drummer who was working with David at the time. Guy called Mako, who was a hugely inspirational presence in my life then for the next 25 years after that. And again, with him, I remember standing in front of the drum kit with him, recording the first backing track, if you like, the guide track of that song, and standing in front of him playing guitar and sort of jumping up and down and trying to inspire him to be bigger and more expressive and emotional. And again, I was young and an idiot, quite frankly, and just sort of on fire, you know.
Yeah.
But I remember those moments really fondly because I feel like I put an awful lot of young energy into something that people can recognize when they hear it now.
Yeah, for sure. So
I think that's the way people respond to it. So I think yes would probably be always the number one thing.
Yeah.
In that way. Other things, I don't know. I mean, obviously, I'm hugely in love with this record with Catherine. I'm very proud of that. Every moment on it. I don't know what my favorite moment on it is. I love a song called I Know, which I really like. I love the way she delivers. There's certain lines she delivers in that which I think are really beautiful, sort of touch me in a way as a kind of a third party to the content of the lyric, if you like. So that's really really great. I made a record with Sam Lee last year, which just came out this year, who's kind of a folk artist, and that was a huge moment for me because it was deliberately outside of each other's genres. The way Sam works is he works with folk songs, but which deliberately he tries to find new ways of expressing them. So trying to get away from the Aaron jumper and, you know, finger picking acoustic guitar, you know, kind of brigade. And so hence me in the middle of it. And we have this kind of quite classical and jazz inspired sounds, all sorts of things going on with the record. And I found it hugely rewarding. Again, working with people that work on such a finite, pure level of music that I just felt I was on my toes all of the time, you know, in a way that if I look back to 1992, I couldn't imagine getting the opportunity to work with people like that and to exist around people like that. But that's probably my ambition, you know, to be around people who are with true greatness. You know, I don't know, things like you wouldn't even know, you know, that a bass player or the pianist that I'm looking at thinking, oh my God, you're so great what you're doing. And I had a violinist called Alice Zawodzki recording violin in my front room. We recorded a lot of it in my front room. And this woman is so extraordinary, her expression, and she's a very famous violinist. And I was just listening to this thinking, this is just amazing. And it's happening in my front room. And in about 2 hours' time, we'll be sitting here watching TV.
Yeah.
In front of the telly. And here, so later on, I was watching TV and thinking, this is so weird. 2 hours ago, I had this incredible musician standing there, right there in front of the telly, playing violin, doing this amazing thing. And here I am just slobbing around now. So the Sam record is for me is really extraordinary. We had Elizabeth Fraser sang a song on it, which is a really great moment. I remember receiving this Elizabeth's vocal by an email on a Friday night after I'd been out of an evening, put it that way,
Right.
and was returning home and got this email and was like, oh my God, I'm putting this. And I remember going into my room and sticking it up into the session immediately, putting her vocal into the Pro Tools session, and I'm just like, oh my God, this is Elizabeth Fraser singing, and just listening to it over and over, the purity of her voice on solo. It was just an extraordinary moment. So yeah, I'm really fond of my experience with Sam and the people he introduced me to, and the fact that it took me out of my zone again, out of the sort of the experience of what people expect you to be, and allowed me to sort of be completely out of my depth, which is where I sort of always like being.
Yeah. Well, that's a beautiful way to end our conversation, I think. I don't think I need to think of a clever wrap-up question. I love it. You happy with our chat?
Yeah, it's been nice. Thanks, Laura.
Oh, you're very welcome.
I feel, again, it's very self-indulgent of me. So I just, it's not the way I'd like to be remembered, quite frankly, for talking about myself.
Oh, no, of course not.
I'd like to think, you can try and express these things as about inspiring people to create, and how important it is. It's not about me or what I've done or something. It's about my sort of belief that it's something important in life, and something important that exists for all of us. And the more validation there is for it to exist in people's lives, but also the more inspiration for people to know about the processes of it and how to work within it. I think that's the only thing that I've got. That's the only use for me these days, basically.
Well, I'll tell you a little secret then, which is that when I was making coffee just before coming up here to talk to you today, I was saying to my husband, do you want to know what my inner critic is saying right now? And he said, go on then. And it was saying, who do you think you are to have a podcast, to talk about yourself and to waste Bernard Butler's time? And the reason, of course, to have this podcast is to do exactly what you're saying, to try and inspire listeners to realize their own creative power, to realize that we are all humans. Even Bernard Butler is a human man who has, hopes and dreams and worries and, inner critic and all that kind of stuff. And and you've so beautifully talked about why you do this and why you continue to do this. And that's inspired me. So selfishly, I am, delighted that we got to speak this way. And I'm very thankful that you said yes.
Well, thank you.
And I just hope that listeners can get something from it too. And that's what this is for, especially this year. This podcast was going to happen anyway, but I'm resolute to continue it because of what's going on at the moment. Because I think music and art is so important. And I think our listeners and our audience are so important. And I just want to respect them and treasure them, really, and give them things. That's what this is for.
Yes.
Yes.
I concur heartily. Well, the only thing I can say is I listened to Lemon Sissay yesterday, and it threw up lots of questions for me. So we're all on every side of it. He's a fascinating character, and someone I find inspiring the way he was talking. So it threw up lots of questions for me. So that's the way I think about it, and hope that this throws up questions for other people. That'd be nice.
Yeah. Well, thank you again so much for doing it.
Thank you so much. It's such a great thing.
What a brilliantly inspiring and very humble man. I really got a lot from that conversation, and I hope you did too. What are you going to make next? I hope you're in the mood now to explore Bernard's work. I've put together a deluxe show notes post as usual over at penfriend.rocks/Bernard, where you can get handy links to all the work he mentioned. Do please check that out. If you enjoyed this episode, please subscribe and consider leaving a star rating and a review. This massively helps get the show in front of potential new listeners. Amazingly, this completely independent series is nearing 15,000 total downloads, which blows my mind. As I told Bernard, I have no intention of stopping. I love that this show means something to so many people, and it's massively helping me get through a very tough year. Thank you for being one of those listeners. It means so much to me. Massive thanks, as always, to the Correspondence Club, a remarkable group of people who support my music making through monthly and annual subscriptions. Lots of love to you, lovely lot. If you'd like to join us, there are free and paid tiers to browse at penfriend.rocks/join. And everyone who visits my website can get 2 free songs immediately just by entering an email address. Do join me next week for my conversation with music producer, solo artist and Bernard Butler collaborator, Catherine Ann Davies, aka The Anchoress. Until then, take care of yourself. Speak soon.